Hey, welcome back. So today I'm starting a new series about something that I feel is very important to me, and that's mental health. So this is the first video in my series, Let's Talk About Mental Health. This is my little cat called Moon, and he's gonna be joining us today. There was this YouTuber I watched in high school. A lot of you probably know her, Ashley, or Best Dressed, as her channel is called, but she stopped posting like 2-3 years ago. But she had this like girl talk kind of big sister series where she talked about a lot of stuff that like her parents didn't really talk about with her. And that's the vibes that like I want this to have. Mental health is often really difficult to talk about because it can be, first of all, very taboo. A lot of people don't think it's real. When you are struggling with mental health, a lot of the time people will tell you that they're there for you. Whatever you need, let them know. While it is natural to turn to our friends in moments where we are feeling down, it can be burdening on people, not because they don't want to be there for you, but because they don't know how to help. In the same way, you don't know how to help yourself. So today we're going to talk about one of the most important things when discussing mental health, specifically for teenagers, the importance of getting help. And when I say help, I mean professional help. And you might be thinking, whoa, that's too much. Like, I'm just having a rough time. Like, I don't need to go through all of that. A lot of people will even feel guilt being like, oh, I'm feeling depressed because they haven't been diagnosed with depression, or they don't know if that's what they're feeling. A lot of the time, if you're struggling with mental health, it may feel like personal failure. Because of that, it's difficult to even realize that you might need help. I'm just gonna put him to the side for now. If you're at the point where you're ready to ask for help and you think that your friends, can't really help you, your parents don't really know what to do, here are the 3 professional ways that you can get help. A disclaimer before we start this video: if you are having any suicidal thoughts, if you're having any self-harming thoughts in this moment, if you're feeling completely overwhelmed and like you're physically getting overwhelmed with any kind of panic attack, anxiety attack, if it's anything that's immediate and urgent, I urge you to go to a family member. And if you can't rely on a family member, if it's really urgent, I urge you to call 911. I cannot help with anything like that. This video is more for if you're looking for resources but just don't know where to start. So the first thing that's really important with dealing with mental health is a diagnosis. A lot of the time, institutions, family members, friends don't really take you seriously, and you don't even take your own emotions seriously unless they're externally validated by a doctor of some sorts. This can be extremely overwhelming, first of all, to go through the process of getting a diagnosis. In Canada, where I grew up, the first step that you have to do is tell your doctor. Mental health is an aspect of health. It's a healthcare. If you are worried about your mental health, it is the same as if you're worried about your physical health. If you are feeling overwhelmed all the time, even when not a lot is going on, that is something you should tell your doctor. Just as if you're feeling teeth pain, even though you brush your teeth all the time, you would tell your dentist. So it is important to let your doctor know. It might take a long wait time. If you have the money and don't need insurance, you may be able to go through private channels, but this is the way that everybody has access to this. Additionally, if you get diagnosed by a psychologist, they can't prescribe you any medication, and a psychiatrist can. So that's really important if you're looking to get diagnosed for something like ADHD, for example. That's really important because medication is an important part of resolving those issues. So you might want to emphasize that you want to be referred to a psychiatrist. So that brings us to the next point, which is medication. Medication can be life-changing, but it is not a fix-all solution. Medication is often meant to give you help so you can get your life back on track. So you can handle the things you're feeling. Medication is also often not covered by insurance, even in countries that have universal health care. So that's a little bit iffy. You might have to go on certain medications, let your psychiatrist or doctor know what your insurance coverage is. Additionally though, medication is not a bad thing. I am very open about the fact that I take medication. If you have a thyroid condition where you have to take a pill every morning so you don't die, or if you have diabetes and you have to take insulin every day so you don't die, that medication isn't frowned upon. And mental health medication, once again, is health. If you take vitamins, you're not ashamed to tell people that. And the same way, you shouldn't be ashamed to be on medication. It is a tool to help you get better. I want to emphasize the word help. All of these tools are to help you. They're not going to immediately fix everything, but they will help you. That being said, a lot of the time you don't really need medication and you might only need therapy, which brings me to my third point. Therapy can be intimidating. There's a lot of stigma around therapy, that it doesn't help, that it's basically paying for a friend, that it's paying for a pep talk, that it is paying for somebody to listen to you. While there are valid reasons to all those statements, it can be helpful, and it really depends on finding the right therapist. I've been to so many therapists and I still haven't found the right one. I've had therapists that have helped me for like a certain period of time and then it just stops helping. Like I feel like, again, I'm paying for a glorified pep talk, or I'm just having appointments with therapists that don't really understand me. I always say give your therapist 3 tries. After the second appointment, it can feel like they don't understand you, but you are just getting to know the person, so there can be a learning curve. Oftentimes you're like feel obligated to stay with the therapist you're with because you don't want to start the process all over again. But if your therapist isn't helping you, you're just throwing money down the drain and throwing time down the drain. Honestly, once again, therapy can be really helpful, especially because you can have somebody to talk to that's not going to judge you for anything. If you talk to a family member, you might not be able to talk about family issues. If you talk to a friend, you might not be able to talk about issues you have with a mutual friend with them. So it's really good to have like a place you can trust. Almost like a diary, but it's a person. While therapy can be expensive and not fully covered by insurance, or the waitlist can be long if it is free and offered to everybody, I will say it is one of the easiest ways to get help, in the sense that you don't have to have a diagnosis for therapy. You don't need to have any mental health issues to go to therapy. It's something that's available to everybody. So if you're overwhelmed, you don't really want to get a diagnosis, you don't want a label on you, and you don't really think that you want to take medication either, that just feels like a big commitment, then I would say therapy is the way to go. Maybe talk things through with somebody, talk things through with a therapist to feel if you really should get diagnosed or not. Because sometimes a therapist can help you come to the conclusion that how you're feeling actually isn't normal and you do need a diagnosis, or how you're feeling is normal and it's just something you're going through because you're in a tough spot right now. To recap, when you want to get a diagnosis, the first step is to call your doctor. Medication, if your doctor can't prescribe those to you, they will refer you to a psychiatrist that can evaluate you and see if they can prescribe that to you. You just have to call them up. You know that one sound that's just like, what if you just called Taylor up?
What would happen if you just called Taylor up and just say, what happened? How did this go so south?
Like literally just call your doctor. For therapists, again, call your doctor. They have resources. They can put you on a wait list for therapy if you don't want to pay for therapy and you don't want to use, for example, your parents' insurance because you don't want them to know you're going to therapy. You can call your doctor and ask them to put you on a wait list for free therapy or social services. Especially in Canada, I know that that's an option. If you're at university, you can call your university's health line for students and ask them for resources. If there's any counseling waitlists you can go on, if there's any group counseling, drop-in counseling. The main thing is you just have to call them up, and that's the first step. And once you do that, things will start to flow. So if you're sitting there wondering, how on earth am I supposed to get help? Like everybody keeps telling me to get help, but I don't know how. Those are 3 steps that you can take. And hopefully once you start taking those steps, other things will fall into place that will help you get better as well. Now, if a friend has come to you and asked you for help, and if it's a very serious situation, the rule is if they are self-harming repeatedly and not telling a therapist about it, or they're not seeing anybody to get help with that, you should call health professional. The problem with how people take care of mental health these days is they often call 911 or the police. If somebody calls 911, the police may come to pick you up. Because they think you're a harm to yourself, they will watch you until you're admitted into a hospital. This can be extremely terrifying for somebody who's going through a mental health struggle. But if you do find yourself listening to a friend and they're talking about how they're fighting, thoughts of self-harm every day and how they are seriously considering suicide, it's important to get them that help. You don't have to go behind their back and do it. You can talk to them up front. You can be like, listen, I'm concerned and I really think you should see a doctor. If you won't call your doctor, I can call them for you and tell them that you're feeling this way. The problem that a lot of people have with asking for help is shame. And the main thing to remember is that it's health, it's your well-being. If you are sick, you're not going to feel ashamed of having the cold. So you should have the same approach to mental health. So yeah, that's all I'm going to talk about today in my first part about mental health. This is probably going to be the most serious issue, but I feel like it's the most important. A lot of the time people just don't know where to start. If there's anything else you guys want me to talk about, I have a lot of other ideas coming up, talking about the stigma of mental health in more depth, coping mechanisms, like self-soothing or journaling or support groups. And I feel like this could be helpful to somebody who's doesn't really know a lot about mental health yet and wants to know about how to deal with that, because at some point in our lives we all deal with these struggles. Thank you all for watching. I hope to see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.